Next, very important things we have to know about is the tracts. You have ascending tracts and descending tracts. So please don't mistake me that I am taking a lot of time for the anatomy and physiology, because differential diagnosis is all about spotting the anatomical structures which are not functioning. So without knowing the anatomy and physiology and the function of all these things, it is going to be tough for you to understand the differential diagnosis. The tracts are very important. The ascending tracts and the descending tracts are very important structures, because the sensory information is carried through the ascending tracts. So when it comes to ascending tracts, you might be knowing about the first order neuron, second order neuron, and third order neuron. Very classically, you should know that we don't use this third order, first order, second order in motor nervous system. That is the descending nerve descending tracts. We will not use this word. Likewise, in descending tracts, we use this word called upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron, but we don't use that in case of ascending tracts, because there is no motor neurons involved here, because it is a purely a sensory tract. It carries information from the periphery and to the center. So when I say tract, that means collection of nerve fibers which are running up and down in the spinal cord. As long as they are in the spinal cord, they are called as tracts. You should not say that there is a tract in the brain. It is only pertaining to the spinal cord. Uh, Next is the spinothalamic tract. What is the function of the spinothalamic tract? And you have to say how it crosses over. It carries information about pain, touch, temperature, and mild pressure and crude pressure. All these superficial sensations are carried by the receptors, and it comes to the posterior horn cells. From the posterior horn cells, you should know that it crosses to the opposite side at the spinal cord level itself to the white column. That is the white column of the lateral spinothalamic tract or the anterior spinothalamic tract. It enters into the gray column and crosses to the opposite, and it occupies the white column, because the nerve cell body is going to be here, and the cell body gives axon, and the collection of axons are obviously going to be in the white matter. That is what we have seen previously, that what is the difference between a gray matter and a white matter. So which is the first order neuron here? The first order neuron starts from the receptors and goes and gets synapsed with the second order neuron in the posterior horn cells. Okay, where is the cell body of the first order neuron? It is located in the posterior root ganglion. We have seen already that ganglion means collection of cell bodies outside the central nervous system. So here is the ganglion, and the nerve synapses with the second order neuron in the posterior horn cells. Got it? So this information from here on is going to be sent upwards on the opposite side. It is going to occupy the opposite side, and it goes upwards. And what happens? It goes up to the brain stem. In the brain stem, it crosses the medulla, pons, and the midbrain, and it is going to relay in the thalamus. In the thalamus, the second order neuron will end, and the third order neuron will arise, and it will go to the sensory cortex in the brain. Got it? So three order neurons are there. The first order up to the posterior horn cells, the second order up to the nucleus in the thalamus, the third order from the thalamus to the cerebral cortex, sensory area of the cerebral cortex. So very importantly, you have to remember the spinal crossing of the spinothalamic tract. The spinothalamic tract crosses at the level of spinal cord itself. So this is going to be important for your differential diagnosis. The second thing is the posterior column, or the cuneatus and gracilis, tract of cuneatus and gracilis. So they carry the deep sensation, namely the proprioception and kinesthesia or vibration. Again, there are receptors for separate receptors for all these things. Particularly, they are located in and around the articular region, deep inside the capsule or the ligaments, and they carry the information from there. Again, goes to the posterior root ganglion and then comes to the posterior horn cells. relay the information here. The nucleus, now here the first order neuron ends and the second order neuron starts and goes up to the medulla. In the medulla, you have here you have to note one thing, that this does not crosses. As soon as it enters into the gray column of the posterior horn cells, it goes to the white column on the same side and it ascends upwards on the same side. It does not crosses. It goes to the medulla, particularly the lower medulla. In the medulla, it has the nucleus of gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. Here is the second order neuron located. From here, the informations are taken to the thalamus. The second order neuron, from the thalamus, the information, the third order neuron carries the information to the cerebral cortex. So this portion of the tract traveling in the brainstem is called as lemniscus, medial lemniscus. Medial lemniscus is a combination of the nucleus, the fibers from the gracilis and the cuneatus, but the name differs. It is called as a medial lemniscus here. Okay, when I say this thing, you have to know where are the first order neuron and where are the second order neuron, third order neuron for this particular tract. Okay, here the first order neuron is from the receptors to up to the brainstem, and from the medulla the second order neuron starts and goes to the thalamus, and the third order neuron from the thalamus to the cerebral cortex. Got it? So next is the spinocerebellar tract, much often ignored tract. They send information from the deep sensation received, and it sends information to the cerebellum directly. So why this tract? What is the function of this tract? This tract is going to compare the intended movement with actually happening movement. The brain has instructed you to draw something. The brain perceives that drawing should be in this manner, but how you actually draw, the drawing is going to be compared whether the movements of your hand are as expected that of the motor program or motor planning, and whether it is executed in the same manner or there is any difference. This comparison is going to be done by the cerebellum. For that, what is the tract that is responsible? The spinocerebellar tract.